Hey, kaikki suomalaiset. Welcome to the Black Pearl of the Pacific Islands, the Cook Islands. I am standing right on the beach of Rarotonga, the island of Rarotonga, which is the capital island of the Cook Islands. Here in the Cook Islands, we have 15 islands altogether, and 12 of those islands are inhabited by people. Now, we specifically took this photo shoot on the beach because I want you to understand the close link that the Polynesia and the people of the Cook Islands have between the sea and the land. Now, when you look at the sea for the Cook Islander, he sees that as his bowl of food. The fish is a very important diet of the Cook Islands, and of course the land is where we produce our food crops and so on. So it is important, and you need to recognize, of course, that the I suppose the beach and the land represents the tropical climate that we have. It's warm during the summer. We have temperatures that rise up to 40 degrees, and in winter we get a very freezing 18 degrees Celsius, and sometimes we can reach down to 14 degrees Celsius in the early hours of the morning. I know it's not like Finland, but here when the temperature is around about 20 degrees we are freezing. Cook Islands is just one of the islands of the South Pacific, but the characteristics of the Cook Islands is similar to other islands. Now, the Cook Islands is divided into two groups of islands. The first group is called the Northern Cook Islands, and when you go there, all of those islands are very small, the populations are small, but the islands are atolls. Now, maybe some of you do not know what atoll islands are. They are simply volcanoes that haven't quite penetrated the surface of the sea, but over the centuries the corals have grown and they form these little islands in a ring with a deep lagoon in the middle. That is what is called atolls. But in the southern Cook Islands, like where we are in the capital island of Rarotonga, we have what is called volcanic islands, and these are high islands with mountains in the middle or in the center of the islands. So as you can see, the sun is hot. We are in the middle of our summer season, and I hope that you are enjoying the sea. Look at how colorful it is, and those are real colors, genuine colors. There's no pollution, but it's really beautiful to watch. Now, whilst the climate and the scenery might look beautiful at this time of the year, but it is also the tropical cyclone season of the year. Now, it could be difficult for you to imagine that this scenery can change overnight if there was a cyclone in the vicinity. Now, as I stand over here, there has been cyclones that have passed through here, and where the sea would have been higher than where I am now. This place is just covered with high seas, and waves will actually, huge waves, cyclonic waves, will actually break past me. So it can be very, very dangerous when there's a cyclone around. But thank God that this is a blessed island, that you do not always get cyclones each year. You might be lucky to get one a season, and they might not even strike Rarotonga. They might just go past the islands. But other times, cyclones have been known to go right over this island, and it can cause a lot of damages. But nevertheless, if you want to come to the Cook Islands, everything about it is good, and when there's a cyclone, well, you're just gonna have to find a safe place until the cyclone has blown over. Kia ora again from the Cook Islands. This moment I just want to paint a picture of the spiritual climate in the Cook Islands. We have about 14,500 people throughout the islands of the Cook Islands, and like any Pacific island, church plays a major part of everyday life. And if you were come to the islands, you will find, as you travel around the islands, that there are many churches that have been planted and established. Well, here in the Cook Islands we have 4 mainline churches. They are the Cook Islands Christian Church, we have the Catholic Church, we have the Seventh-day Adventist Church, and we also have the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, commonly known as the Mormons. But in the last 30 to 35 years, we have had the influx of Pentecostalism, and this is where my particular church come in. We are the first Pentecostal church that have been established here in the Cook Islands. That was established about 35 years ago. Now, so you can say then that in the Pacific Islands, and certainly in the Cook Islands, people are very religious. They're like the Jews, which practice religion but really do not understand what it means to have a personal relationship with God through His Son Jesus Christ. So you can imagine that if people are religious in our community, then you have challenges if you want to bring the full gospel of Jesus Christ to these communities in the islands. So when you think about mission boats, Christian Boat Association, considering mission boats coming into the islands, you have this spiritual climate to consider. Now, from my perspective, even though the people are religious, they are also open to knowing personal relationship with God through Jesus Christ. They are open to the message of being born again in Christ Jesus. So, bringing a boat here, of course, for mission work, you have to seriously consider what you will encounter. First of all, of course, the challenges that faces a boat, its berth, its crew, the distance and the waters it has to traverse. And then you've got to look at the people itself. How do you communicate to them? But thank God, most of the islands in the Pacific, and most certainly in the Cook Islands, they all speak English as a first or second language. So the communication, the means of communication really is English. So I believe there is an opening for mission boats into the Pacific. But it must have a multiple use. Now, one of the things you must understand is that these islands are very sparsely located. There's a lot of open sea in between islands, and it's not always easy to access these islands by air. So this is where the boats become very important. Well, consider this. Here in the Cook Islands, between the most southern island and the northmost northern island is a distance of about 800 miles. So that is a very long way. And if you consider the distance between here and the islands of Fiji, that is 1,000 miles distance. And if you would consider French Polynesia or Tahiti to the west of the Cook Islands, that's a distance of about 650 miles. And if you consider the islands of Samoa to the northwest of the Cook Islands, that's another distance of 600 plus miles. So there's a lot of distances between these islands, and boats can be useful. But you must consider also, because of these distances, there is a need to carry cargoes that will support the community in each of these islands. And this is where mission boats can play a very important part for the community, which also kind of enhances acceptability by the community of such a project as missionary boating or Christian boating. So there's a lot of challenges that are involved. Now, often, especially in places like the Cook Islands, the manpower or the people, as I mentioned earlier on, the population is very small. And where at one time in the distant past, the Cook Islands were known to be missionary-oriented people. We have sent hundreds of missionaries throughout the Pacific Islands. We have sent them to such distant places as Papua New Guinea. But today it seems that that missionary spirit have died down a bit, and we need to revive that. And but when you move out to the other islands like Fiji, Samoa, Vanuatu, the Solomon Islands, there are a lot of people there who would willingly participate in boat mission work. So there are opportunities out there. But one thing I would encourage before mission boats come here, today the internet is very useful to find information. So get familiar with these islands, because you can get the information from the internet, so that when the challenges come, you are already prepared for it and you can face it. And I mean, let's be clear on this. Let's understand it, that wherever there's an attempt to reach out to people of whatever community with the gospel, the enemy will always oppose it in different ways. So know that there are different challenges, because in each location where the mission, where the gospel is preached, where the gospel is taken, there will always be spiritual challenges that can be manifested through other people who do not believe. So I think there is an opening for boat missions, but let us be wise in using the resources that God gifted us with, and let us make sure that we are good stewards of using those resources. I know that it is not cheap to run these boats, but if we are strategic in our approach, I am sure much can be achieved for the gospel and bring glory and honor to Jesus Christ, the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. In the Pacific Islands, and certainly in the Cook Islands, people are very, very religious. They are like the Jews, which practice religion, but really do not understand what it means to have a personal relationship with God through His Son, Jesus Christ. They are open to the message of being born again in Christ Jesus. I believe there is an opening for mission boat into the Pacific.